Fellow Web Wingers, remember us? Glad to welcome you back to Web Wings after a shortish hiatus. We are now on season 2, series 2, depending on where you're from, episode 1. And as always, it is Alex and Annie here with you, delivering your regular-ish slice of e-commerce pie. Delicious and profitable is the game.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
It's been a while.
Oh, no. It's been a short period in which we have been thinking hard on content, and it's not just that we've been so bleeding busy that we haven't had time
we've not,
to do any of this.
We've not done that at all.
No.
Anyway, it's been a while, but we're not going to dwell on it, are we?
No, we're not going to dwell on it. We're not going to mention it anymore, actually, after the next few seconds.
No. So the good news is for everybody.
You're all forgetting about it, listeners.
Yep. The good news for everybody, so they can forget about it, is that we are back.
Yes.
And we are here to impart our Webly wisdom, new phrase, into the world once again. Well, basically, we'll just have a chat about e-commerce and probably take the mick out of each other.
That's what we normally do. Funnily enough, it's what we do most days anyway. It's just that we record it and make it available for your ears. It's been quite a year so far for many, for lots, for certainly the industry. So we thought we'd do a little bit of a review, see what major topics have been. There's quite an interesting report that's come out about the state of e-commerce, particularly Europe. It covers worldwide as well. So we're going to have a little look at some of the things that has suggested, because actually they're quite relevant topics. Normally these things are let's say vehicles for which study groups and companies use to try and push their services onto you, and this is probably no different, but it does contain a little bit of interesting information. It's from a company called signifyd, which is spelt so awfully I'm not even going to read it out.
I can see it written down and I wouldn't read it out.
No, I'm not reading that out, but you can look it up if you want to. It covers the post-pandemic e-commerce world. Again, we're all sick of saying post-pandemic. It doesn't really matter anymore. But there's useful things in there, and I think it's probably worth talking about and highlighting, because it's got to the point where people are just sort of thinking, well, let's ramp it all up again, and we're going to say the same thing over and over again, as we have done in an awful lot of the topics, because it is the one thing that we all forget. Some of the basics get a little bit lost. But what have you seen in it, Andy?
So you all know I love statistics, and that's the bit that sticks out of it for me. So probably the thing that surprised me most from the report is there's the rise of buy now, pay later. Now, I'll be honest, I use buy now, pay later quite a bit because I'm poor. Because nobody pays their web developers enough money.
Oh, no, they're awful at it.
Terrible. They don't pay on time either, that's the worst bit. Anyway, apparently, up to since 2020... Yeah, it does sound like a me issue. Since 2022, the buy now, pay later has increased by 68%.
Huge!
It is. It's a huge increase, over 2/3. It's nearly as much as the increase in the usage of Apple Pay. Although probably significantly nowhere near as much of an increase as PayPal, which was up 274%.
Yeah.
However, does the PayPal statistic include their buy now, pay later? It's hard to say.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, say that in the report. So
no, it doesn't break it down. So we're going to assume it includes buy now, pay later as well.
But it's a big increase. That's 68%.
It is.
That's a lot. So that's since 2022. So between 2022 and 2023, 68% increase in buy now, pay later, which is.
And I suppose that is a significant pointer of how the world has, or certainly how this country has gone.
Yeah.
As a result of, I'm going to use the words of the cost of living crisis, but
because he lives.
Because he lives.
Because he lives. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it because he lives.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rise of that has been quite prevalent, and that's clearly been fueled by the cause he lives.
Yeah, and I think no, please don't say it again. It makes me cringe. But these things I would normally expect to see accompanied by new technology or something like that, and buy now, pay later isn't actually that new, is it? It's not.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, you look at
even online, and the same companies that you see, Klarna, ClearPay. There are an awful lot of them. There are some.
Well, there've been a lot of them for years,
but they've been around for quite a while. Certainly enough that you wouldn't be expecting this kind of increase to just be related with the adoption of the technology.
No, and I mean when you look at obviously based on UK experience, you look at the likes of Argos, other catalogue companies that are out there. I won't mention everybody's names because there's plenty of them, but they've done buy now, pay later with extortionate interest rates for many years. And I think the biggest difference here is the likes of Klarna or Kaylana, depending on how you pronounce it.
Who pronounces it Kaylana?
Oh, people do.
Wrong. It's very wrong. Klarna.
Wrong people. Yes, wrong people. But the rise of interest-free.
Yes. Yeah.
And
although typically not something that they offer that much on those kind of things. They're generally some sort of, but there's periods and things that they do offer it and whatnot, and that's certainly got something to do with the amount of time it's taken people to adopt it. There used to be a lot higher interest rates for them.
They did, and it's probably a lot easier to get into than using, say, a credit card and things like that. People are very wary about the credit card bill, whereas buy now, pay later doesn't sound quite the same.
No, and it's integrated, and that's probably one of the main points on this, that actually it's already part of the process you're going through to buy something. It's not an additional process, whereas for some people, and not alienating those in countries, particularly America, where actually credit is used in a slightly different way sometimes, or traditionally has been, perhaps let's say these days. But you buy it on credit and you pay it back, and most cards are credit rather than debit in some countries, not in all. But within particularly Europe, people will have a view that credit is almost an entirely different thing. Yes, using a card and a number and whatnot, but actually buying something on a credit card is a very different experience in the mind to what's just coming out the bank. Whereas integrating it all in the way it's done makes it feel like it's, I'm just buying something online anyway. Yeah, that's the way that website has it available to me. That's the way they do it. That's what we've got. And the stat which made it really stark for me in the report is that actually debit and credit card sales collectively are down 22%. Between
and I think that's crazy.
Yeah, between 2022 and 2023, down 22%, nearly down a quarter. Talking about online sales, how are people paying for things? Well, they're paying for them using various other methods. So that does include Apple, Google Pay, and whatnot, which you could argue is just another method of using your credit or debit card, but also
it is. I mean, I use Apple Pay for everything where I can. So it's easier than I don't like getting a wallet out anymore.
I'm going to potentially shock you. I'm a very recent adopter of NFC technology for making payments. I found it clunky for years. I know everyone has, you just been out and whatnot. There's nothing worse than standing there at a checkout looking like a doddery fool. Whereas I have technology for everything, and yet whipping out my phone, then pushing the button, then putting my thumb on it, and it feels like I can be ready with my card in my hand in a queue. Whereas when I get to the checkout and I finish packing everything, I've got to get my phone out and put my thumb on and pain in the bum.
All right. Well, so I was totally opposite to that. I was an early adopter. I had first generation of Apple Watch, which had NFC payments within it. And it was only as contactless was starting to really sort of take off. And I found it easier to just walk up to something, double press the button on the side of my watch and just tap it. I never had to get anything out of my pocket.
That sounds nice and easy. I wish it was that easy.
It was, it was that. It was that easy.
That easy with a phone.
No, To be fair, Apple Pay on the phone is quite easy if you've got a modern version that uses your face. Because obviously you just pick the phone up and it does its job.
So, well, there's a difference. You're one of those Apple people. I'm an Android person. Anyway, we've digressed slightly, but it does count as not that we normally do that, but still down 22%. 22% people are using non-credit and debit cards on online services, which primarily means things like PayPal or buy now, pay later. And I remember, I remember, I get boring here. Not that I've ever done that before, but I remember the first time I implemented a buy now, pay later on a web, and it was probably about 2015 for me. I think is when it was, and it was a name that's still around while it was in its infancy, and it was quite a faff, and it went through an awful lot of iterations, an awful lot of hoops to jump through. And I remember we put it in, and it's quite a big website. It went in, certainly had a decent amount of orders, and it was just such a faff to get in. It took months. There was approval processes. There was all sorts of things that you had to go through. It didn't do very well at the time for the clients. I think we ended up in having about 5 to 7 clients, and probably in that year. So it was quite well adopted at that point, and it was such a faff for all the hoops that people needed to jump through afterwards, as well as the business managing their side of it with additional dashboards and things like that. It sort of fell by the wayside. I think it fell by the wayside for a good few years. I've got clients where I remember installing it on their site in, say, 2015-ish, taking it out for a few years because it did so badly, and then when it did get used, it wasn't particularly an intuitive experience for everyone involved. And then, we've gone back a few years later. Actually, I think we'll give that another go. And now it contributes for quite a lot of sales. I think it probably does an awful lot more. And I couldn't personally understand that. I mean, you said you use it. I've personally never used it. It's not something I've liked the idea of, because it is absolutely everywhere now. I mean, let's be honest, you could use it on Just Eat. You can order yourself a Greg's sausage roll and some donuts and a coffee, and if it comes to over 10 quid, you can now pay for it over 3 months.
Yeah, I mean that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, isn't it? And I think it's probably a different topic for discussion here. But it's probably almost exploiting people at that point, I would say.
I think it is, and I think come down the line we'll get similar principles to the payday loan situation. Yeah,
there's going to be, because that's the other point I want to make. It's so easy to install now. Anyone can go through this process. You can sign up to have it included on your website. And it's a brilliant thing for big ticket items where people might want to spread the cost. Why not? Why not? If the APR offered is good, if it suits someone, and it's a purchase that they wouldn't otherwise be in a position to make, why not allow them to do that if that's what they wish to do? It's no different to using any other line of credit, as long as you're sensible with it. But the example where you can use it, you could technically use it today to go out and buy a McDonald's.
Yeah, and that's where it becomes a problem.
I think it does become a problem, and there's more. I have actually had an email yesterday, and I've had one this morning from clients where the buy now, pay later companies are getting more and more tough on the regulations around it, and it's not them; it's being put upon them from regulators, which I think is a very positive thing to see.
It is, rather than being reactive, it's a little bit more proactive.
It is. But there are still, like I said, big ticket items, things like that. It's good. And I've actually spoken to a couple of people. There was a way that people used it that I had never thought of before. I spoke to someone who can definitely afford to purchase all of the things that they want, but this particular person will buy 4 or 5 of a clothing item they like, and they'll get it in different colours, or maybe slightly different sizes. Like people have done with catalogues for years. The principle's the same. Well, I don't know if I'm going to like that in red or green or blue or black or white, or will I actually want all of them? So this person orders all of them. And because the buy now, pay later offers you don't have to make the first payment for, you can put £3 down now, and then you don't have to make your next payment for 30 days. All you have to do is return them, and then you're just paying for the one that you want. You can pay it off in full straight away. You've got 5 items. The retailer got paid for them all in full. You then have to go through the returns process, which, we'll come on to that in a minute. That's another topic for today. But it's a way of allowing people to use the online experience to get them things that they can't quite make a decision on. It's like all of a sudden it's like being in the shop and looking through which ones you like and trying them on, and then only buying the one that you want, because you've only had to pay £3 today. You've had 5 items delivered to your door. The other ones get returned, and you don't have to worry about paying for them at the end of the month. It's a way that I hadn't even been aware that people might use it for that until someone pointed it out to me, and I think there's quite a few people that are using it in that way.
Yeah, I think there probably is.
Which, I think that is probably going to increase, and it's something that retailers who offer it will need to consider more, because as a retailer, you're probably likely to approach it initially as this is going to be a way that means people can buy things when I've got them on sale rather than when they can afford them, or when something launches rather than when they can afford them. Whereas you may, as a retailer, suddenly find that you're having to deal with more returns, which that is another section of the report, and I think something probably worth us highlighting.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that as well. So returns is an element of the report that stood out to us both. The amount of returns has been increasing across the industry. There's a 35% increase in false claims that items have not even arrived, which I think, again, sort of it represents how easy it's become to claim something's not arrived, because final mile delivery has gone downhill dramatically.
Yeah,
the number of delivery companies out there that will just dump on the doorstep and run.
Yeah,
because they've got 900 parcels to deliver per hour, and it's going to get worse in that situation.
Yeah.
But then there's 68% claim. A 68% increase in claims for the poor condition of products arriving, which have forced a return or a refund.
Yeah, and that is, I think that's something that's come full circle again, because back in the earlier days of e-commerce, there were an awful lot more companies that would struggle regularly with, this never arrived, and they do a chargeback through their account. And I remember, again, I'm really showing my age here, but back when there would be an actual dashboard in most e-commerce sites, most big e-commerce sites, for the amount of chargebacks you had that month, and there were percentages of chargeback amounts that if you went over, all of a sudden the bank could really start hitting you with fees, and it was almost a cost of business. It was something I was talking about with a client a few weeks ago. Well, do you remember when we used to have to go through the chargeback reports every week and work out what we could get back and things like that? And I think it is getting to that point almost now where, and it's an assumption, but it is so easy for people to buy things, and it's so easy for people to just hit that buy now button, and it appears that there is the buyer's remorse. There is do you know
Yes.
what? I shouldn't have ordered that. How am I going to get out of it? And I want it. I don't want to return it, or the return's a real hassle, all of that. Do you know what? I'm just going to ping them an email and say, oh, this didn't arrive. Please give me a refund. And that's not necessarily us being unkind, because the reports do show 68% increase in claims of poor condition of products, because let's be honest, an awful lot of companies, it's more expensive for them to get a product back because of the cost of shipping, because of the hassle of getting labels to people.
Yep.
Oh, I've received this and you didn't send me a returns label. How do I get it back to you? Well, you need to print out a label. I don't have a printer. You know, there's the point where for the company, it's almost, well, I'll just send you a refund. And a lot of people, unfortunately, do bank on that, because is it worth to a retailer spending an hour arranging a return label with a courier that's then going to cost them £15 to do the return, and then arranging that with the customer, who then needs to go to the post office or a drop-off point or wait in for a collection, which is again going to cost you more. And then when it comes back, you know, restocking fees are quite, they certainly used to be an awful lot more common. They're not these days, because that offers quite a bad experience for the customer. So by the time that someone has returned a £30-40 item, has it cost the business more than that to get it back into their stock? Very possibly, which is why I think it highlights, and it's not something the report has highlighted, but I think it's something that you and I agree on, Andy, the importance of a positive returns experience. There are some figures about that.
We have.
And people have looked at that, but returns policies are not always paramount, are they? So they're certainly not always in the forefront of an e-commerce retailer's mind.
They're not always clear, and that's the bit that always annoys me.
Yeah.
More than anything, if I'm looking at buying something of a decent value or of a decent size, or something I'm not perhaps 100% certain it's going to be what I wanted it to be, I will go through the returns policy first and see whether or not I can send something back if it's not right, or if there's something wrong with it, or whatever. I understand, obviously, if it's something bespoke, there are rules and so on and so forth. If I've had something engraved or printed or whatever, and I want to send it back after, I'm not going to expect to be able to do that, because that's unreasonable. And I'm a very reasonable person.
So you claim?
Yes, I claim. I said it, so it must be true.
So we've got some figures here that they did from a consumer report. So 62% of shoppers would stop buying from a brand after a poor return experience. Yeah,
and you can get that entirely.
Yeah,
because who wants to go back somewhere that you can't? If you're not going to have a good experience, you're not going to go back, are you?
59% of shoppers would buy more from a brand based on a good returns experience, which is a huge amount. If you could say to an e-commerce company, nearly 60% of your customers are very likely to come back if you give them a really good, clear returns experience, that is worth an awful lot to any company. Yeah, and if you were, let's say a big company at this point, companies that deal with quite a lot of returns, if you could say to them, 60% of people, 50 or 59% of people, nearly 60% of people are going to buy from you again because your returns policy was so clear, or you made it so easy, or it appeared so easy, even though they didn't have to use it. And it's those little reinforcements, rarer these days, is a returns label with something. And yet, as a business, that's half the struggle already dealt with. If you've already got that method by which you can return it in your hand, then that takes half the problem out, because as a business, by the time someone has had to contact you to ask how to return something, they're already expecting you to help them more than what they've already got available to them. So you reply and say, well, you need to print off this returns label, you need to put it in a bag, you need to take it down to the post office.
Yeah.
And they're going to go, well, I don't have time to go to the post office. I've thrown the bag away, or I ripped it when I was opening it, and I don't have a printer. So what are you going to do now? And as a business, your path of least resistance at that point is to go, okay, well, we will send an expensive courier to come and collect it from you at a time that is probably going to be neither convenient to either of us, but we're going to have to pretend that it is. And that's going to cost us a fortune. However, if, as a business, you had sent a returns label in with the original product that clearly said on it, in order to return this product, fill out this form here, stick it to the front of the parcel, pop it in the post, and we will process your returns.
Yep.
That hasn't cost you anything as a business. Yes, you've got the returns, and you might say, well, now we're going to get a load more returns.
But you're not.
But potentially, you might get a slightly higher increase because it is easy. But at the same time, remember that 59% of shoppers that have a really good return experience are more than likely to buy from you again. So they might return one item out of an order, which they didn't actually want to keep anyway. And as a business, what's the point of selling things to people when they really don't want them? But actually, you're increasing your ability to retain customers, and you've given them a really, really good overall experience. And it's been far, far cheaper for you from those that you do have to deal with, because if you're being clever, you print it on the same label or whatever it is, and you just put it in the packing slip, and there it is. There's no arguments about postage. You might get a few. You might get people ring up and say, I want to send this. How do I do it? You haven't given me a label. I've got to pay for it. Well, it is on our terms and conditions. You do indeed need to pay for a return. But you've already preempted that.
We've got a couple of companies that we often buy from that do returns via Every, where it is just drop off at the local parcel shop, which conveniently for us is at the top of the street. But that's so much easier because I go in, I scan the barcode, and I print it. So they're not paying for it unless I actually use it.
So
and it's easy.
I think what's important to say at this point, there are still, and even after all the years I've been doing this, and many years. Someone did actually ask me this question 2 days ago. When did you make your first website? Well, actually, it was 1997, but that was an awful long time ago, Andy, and I'm still incredibly young. So please, there's no need for us to bring it up again.
When people ask me how long I've been doing it, I say my mum tells me I was messing around with the internet when I was young.
Yes,
that's about how she would describe what I do for a living still as well.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't describe it as much more. Yeah,
thanks.
But I have still got clients that I have had for 15 years, and they still don't have the kind of returns policy that I try and impart on them. They make it as hard as possible. Oh, well, it's okay, don't worry. They email us through this dedicated email address, and then what we do is we send them back the link where they can download the form, and then they fill the form out, and then once they send the form to us and we accept the RMA, then they can go and take it down to the post office, and then they can post it back.
Yeah.
And the amount of times I've said that's a 3-day process for somebody to return a $5.99 item to you. Who's winning on that? Oh, well, that's because they don't email us unless they really, really want to return it. And yes, guess what? They also don't come back and buy from you again, because when they did buy that $5.99 item and it wasn't quite what they wanted, or it didn't quite work, or it was broken, they suddenly found that you're an absolute nightmare to deal with when they really needed it.
Yes.
So
this is it.
There's a few little stats here. So what makes for a positive returns experience on a particular customer survey that was done in 2023? 23% of people They surveyed 1,000 people, if I'm right on this one. 23% said that long return windows would help. So that's not that many, really, is it? Less than a quarter of people said that the long return window mattered. Actually, what's more important is a clear return window. So you know how long you've got. Have you got 7 days? Have you got 30 days? Have you got 3 months? What is it? How long have you got to return? So I think clear is more important than long. Free return shipping, 40%. 40% of people said that free return shipping was a positive returns experience. However, I think it's probably still important to remember that it's likely that that's considered a bonus as long as the expectation is managed. So as long as you make it easy for people to do it, like if it's some things, I remember a friend of mine had something where they wanted to return it. It came in a box that was just a little bit too big for the local post office. They couldn't take it over to their little local post office at the bottom of the road. They had to go to a main post office, which meant that they had to go on a weekend, which meant they had to go on a Saturday before 11 a.m. And that meant they had to get up at the weekend. They had to go into town. They had to park. They had to do, so those kind of things. Remember that the things that you can control are making sure that people understand the process. It might not be the best process in the world, but if it's clear and if you've done everything you can to mitigate it, well, actually, that's in the smallest box it'll go. When you return it, you are going to either have to take it to a parcel shop that can accept it or a larger post office, that kind of thing. If you can offer free return shipping, if you've got that kind of relationship, and I'll say a lot of people don't realise how good the relationship they've got with their parcel couriers is. There are people who will send thousands of packages a month through the same account and have never reached out to the person that's in charge of their account because they didn't even know that they existed. You reach out. Not all parcel companies are great. If you reach out and say, I send this money through you, what can I do to get more out of your services that makes my customers better? What can I offer that is better? And with some of them, you'll find that you can do things like where you can send out a returns label with everything, and you only get charged when they get used, which is something you can use to sweeten the deal. Or it might be that you can offer collections from customers who have got something they need to return, and it'll only cost you whatever it might cost you a time. Those kind of things that a lot of companies will reach a point and they don't realize that they have reached that point. Restocking fees is another one. They're not charged as often as they used to be anymore. I think companies that charge restocking fees probably do so for a reason. So if you don't need to charge a restocking fee, it's a deal sweetener for your customers. And then over a third of people said having a return label provided at the point of purchase was already a positive returns experience. So why not? If you can do it, if you can just print it, even if you're just printing a form that tells people how to start the process and manage their expectations so they don't have to reach out to you. Even if your process means that you do need an RMA number, or perhaps it needs to go back to a different address, or perhaps you don't send all your parcels back to the same address. So it does need to be checked by someone first. Manage that expectation with a simple little printout in the whatever it is you've sent to them. I think is probably going to be a really good way, and have it clearly displayed on the website. Just do that. Just have a section called returns, because it's either going to help people decide that they like what you're offering them, or it's going to mean that you don't have the hassle further down the road when they suddenly find out that it's a big pain in the backside for them to even get hold of you, because they need to email you and you only look at your emails once a day for some really strange reason, and it might take 2 days for you to get back to them, whatever else. The positive experience needs to start and finish as early as possible. Sorry, I've talked for it. Please, Andy, contribute.
Contribute. Well, yeah, no, you are exactly right, though. The policies are, if you've not got a clear policy, it's going to cause problems. I think that's the gist of everything you've just said.
Yes. Yeah. Well done. I didn't need to talk for 10 minutes.
No, you didn't. But it was an explanatory 10 minutes. I'll let you have it.
Insightful.
So, insightful. That's a good word. Moving on from returns policies, online sales year on year up 33%. I don't think there's a surprise in that statistic.
No, but it's a good takeaway, isn't it?
It is. I think that just shows how much people are relying on e-commerce these days. You can buy just about anything you need online with very little exception. Yeah,
and that's year on year growth as well.
It is, yeah. That's not even in a long period. That is 2022 to 2023.
Yeah.
So it just shows that there's still opportunities for new retailers and for expansion. But it's elements like this that are often considered a bit of a chore or something to be hidden away from. And they're actually a prime area for growth and retention when it comes to returns, especially.
I agree. But I think on that note, it's probably time that we save the rest for a next episode. We've been talking at our web wingers for nearly 40 minutes now.
Nearly 40 minutes.
Isn't it good to be back, Andy?
It is. I've missed this.
And I'm sure all the web wingers have as well. So instead of continuing to listen to the melodious sounds of our voices, we're going to challenge you to go and think about how you prioritize those things, which are definitely a hassle for you, but become more of a hassle when you then have to deal with them, like a return policy. Like, how is it that you're offering those kind of interactions to your customers? Because there are a significant number of people out there who judge you on it, whether they say or not, and it can be a really, really big area to increase retention, because that's what drives the kind of expansion that any business of any size needs. It's an awful lot cheaper to keep customers, if you're doing it well, than it is to go out there and get new ones. And that's something that almost every business has forgotten at some point. It's the well, we need to go and find more customers. Actually, no, do really well at keeping the ones you've got while focusing on getting new customers, because win. And let us know your thoughts. Social media, email, whatever else it is. Get in touch with us. Tell us if there are topics you'd like covered.
No, well, we've made getting in touch with us easier. So somewhere in the description, according to this, according to our podcast service provider, you can now send us a message from within the description.
And if you don't like what we're doing, don't bother checking for the returns policy. There isn't one.
No, you're not returning us without a fee.
No.
What else is new? We are now also listed on YouTube, which has replaced Google Podcasts. So we may at some point have to turn these into video podcasts, which is going to be really good for our faces.
It's going to be really good for everyone else to look at our faces.
Exactly. I don't think anybody has been more excited about that.
Probably not.
But other than that, you'll find us anywhere you need to. Anywhere you can usually get a podcast, you'll find us. So.
That's it.
We've been Andy and Alex with Web Wings, and we hope, as always, you have a safe onward journey, and we will see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.